Welcome to the Make Your Mark podcast. Hey everyone, I'm Mark Moyer, author of Win Again, speaker, career coach, and business advisor. And I help athletes, executives, and entrepreneurs reach their fullest potential. What you're going to be hearing in every single episode are conversations with athletes and other sports-related influencers. And we'll be offering you the insight that you need to succeed in life, including advice that will let you jump past your competition, whether it be for a great new job or taking your business to a much, much higher level. Make sure to connect with me on social media at Mark Moyer Coach and go to my website, markmoyer.com, to get access to the tips and strategies that my coaching clients get directly. If you're looking for ways to make your mark, send me an email to mark@markmoyer.com and I'll get you going right away. Thanks for joining me today. It's going to be an awesome episode. Now, are you ready to make your mark? Let's do this. Welcome to the Make Your Mark podcast. My name is Mark Moyer and I'm broadcasting to you live from New York City. Super duper thrilled to have you on board wherever you're listening. If it's here in New York, somewhere else in the United States, Canada, Mexico, Europe, Asia, wherever you are, thrilled you're here. And I just finished an amazing conversation with Jesse Cole. Jesse is one of these guys who he really just exudes so much energy, confidence, excitement. This is a guy who basically took a baseball team that was in the doldrums, and if there's a lower word than doldrums, I don't know what it is, and really injected so much energy and excitement into it. And now he's got not only a team that is thriving, but he's got a business that is really showing other businesses how to really turn their experience into fans first, customers first. You're going to hear all about that and so much more. He was a fabulous guest. You're going to love this episode. But before we jump in, make sure to go to my website anytime, markmoyer.com, for access to all the previous episodes. There's 59 previous ones. They're all great. And also access to information that will help your business and your career jump to a whole new level. Reach out to me anytime, mark@markmoyer.com. Would love to hear from you, whether it's feedback on these episodes or if you just want to recommend somebody you'd love to hear on a future episode. Always happy to talk to you about that. But without further delay, here is the episode with Jesse Cole. He's amazing. You're going to love him. And you're going to see the pictures with him in a yellow tuxedo. You'll be really impressed. Happy listening. Welcome to the Make Your Mark podcast. My name is Mark Moyer, and I'm broadcasting live from New York City with all kinds of outside noises going on and everything else. It's fun to broadcast from here. But more importantly, I have Jesse Cole on with me, and I'm just so excited to have the most famous guy in a yellow tux in the history of mankind. Jesse, welcome to the show.
Yes. Pumped to be with you, Mark. And I love that you're already bringing the energy. I can tell right now. This is going to be a crazy, fun show.
Can you imagine the concept that nobody in history has ever done what you're doing? I mean, the world
put on a yellow tuxedo?
Yeah. And walk around a baseball stadium and interview, that's great. I mean, look, there's going to be someone else that may do the green thing or a blue, whatever it is, but no one's done the yellow.
You got to do you. I mean, I found my yellow many years ago. It was the only one that fit me. And I've been rocking it way too many times. I actually proposed to my wife in the yellow tuxedo. She said yes, thank goodness. And I own 7 of these yellow tuxedos. And I guess it's been kind of my calling card. And especially we own the Savannah Bananas. So what else would I wear?
I know you always we'll talk a lot about your company and your team and fans first, but does your wife ever say, hey, how about putting wife first every once in a while?
That's a good question. I don't know where I'm going to go. I don't know where I'm going to go with that, but no.
Nowhere. Don't worry about it.
I'll jump on that, Mark. Actually, we met each other in the industry. I was giving a speech back in 2009, and her boss heard me speak and said, "I met the guy you're going to marry." And we came up through this together. She became our director of fun with our first team in Gastonia, and we had this passion to create this fans first experience together. So that's what drew us together. And now I think the passion is what, passion for something, what keeps us so happy.
Well stated. God, you're a natural at this stuff.
You're gonna throw a tough question at me. I'm gonna come back at you.
All right, I appreciate that. Well, all right, let's start with the easy stuff first. A lot of people know where you are now. Listen, I got a little prop for you. I mean, for those that are watching this versus listening, you were in this fancy magazine with this fancy guy. Just this past issue, I was reading through it, and I'm like, what the hell? I know this guy. And then, of course, oh, by the way, for those listening, I was holding up the December 2019 issue of Entrepreneur Magazine, of which you had a 42-page spread in it, I think, the largest ever in history of guys with yellow tuxedos. It was amazing. And then here's the great picture of you. God, wait, hang on. If I could hold it up next to your face, there's nobody who really do that, but it's incredible, the likeness.
But you're making it
That's
tough for these listeners. This is an audio podcast, and you just keep showing all these pictures. People are like, what's happening right now?
They're all G-rated, by the way.
Yeah.
But it was a great spread in Entrepreneur, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. There are going to be people that I'm going to throw this on YouTube eventually. Tell me a little bit about your upbringing. What got you playing baseball in the first place, and what was it that you think got you so interested in becoming so involved with the sport?
Yeah, I think as a kid, I never would have ever said I want to be an owner of a baseball team. I just wanted to play the game. I was a kid who was hungry and who was in love with practicing, who loved taking batting practice with my dad and throwing bullpens and fielding ground balls. And I fell in love with it so much that my dad actually bought a baseball facility in Massachusetts where I could train all the time. Now, Massachusetts, it's cold, 6-8 months of the year. So he bought that when I was 11 years old, and I started training, and with this whole goal to play professional baseball. That was it. That was everything I thought about. I can't tell you how many times I visualized the phone call on draft day and getting a call from hopefully the Boston Red Sox to say, with the so-and-so selection, but that unfortunately never happened, but it did give me the opportunity to get a full scholarship to play Division I baseball down in South Carolina. And I was talking to teams and tore my shoulder and my junior year, and that ended everything as far as baseball. But it was the best thing that ever happened to me. And, I learned then I fell in love with playing the game, but I didn't love watching the game as much. When you get injured and you have to sit and watch the game, you realize the game is not as exciting as it was to play. And I got an opportunity after that to be an intern of a team and then a general manager at 23 years old, one of the worst teams in the country, with the goal of getting people to want to watch a game that even I couldn't watch. And that's where it really all started. That's where I really gained even a bigger passion for creating this fun experience for fans.
Wait a minute. You went whistling right past the baseball part. I want to ask a couple questions about the baseball part of things, because you mentioned that your junior year, you're not used to being interviewed as an athlete, and we got to turn that around, man. I mean, I'm
definitely not an athlete anymore. I was barely an athlete back when I played, but I'll roll with it.
First of all, were you a lefty or righty?
If I was a lefty, I might still be playing. I was a righty.
There you go. Got it. And so you were pitching, right?
Yes.
And so what do you think honestly led to the injury? I'm just curious about that for, it's funny. I've got a son in high school, and he pitches and plays, infield and outfield and so forth. But I'm curious what you thought.
Yeah, it was 100% overuse. So I came in as a freshman and threw almost 100 innings my freshman year in college, which was the most innings anyone threw at that school. And I went to Wofford College, a small Division I school, and I was also playing the field. So I'd pitch the first game of doubleheader, then I'd play the outfield, or I'd play first base. I was using my arm like crazy. And then during the summer, pitching. And I was a max effort guy. I would put everything I had into it, and I threw a slider, and I threw every pitch as hard as I could. And overuse between that, by my junior year, tore everything in my rotator cuff. I tore my labrum. I actually got to see Dr. Andrews. He's who would perform my surgery because they were trying to get me back. I was the only college player in between all the pro guys, but my coaches were trying to get me back to be able to pitch my senior year and hopefully play pro ball. It couldn't happen. It was too much damage to my shoulder, and that was it.
Now, I'm curious about this. Did you feel that while you were pitching, did you ever feel that could be a problem, or did you kind of have that I'm invincible sort of feeling?
Yeah, I never thought too much about the idea of getting injured. I tried to take care of myself. I was trained very well. I ran, I iced, I did everything I needed to do. But there's only so many pitches that an arm can make in its career. Right. And so that was it for me. I never thought about it, and I never ever thought about what I would do after playing. It was I'm going to play baseball. That's what I'm going to do, and then I might go into coaching. But my life is going to be baseball, and that's where it all changed.
So, because this is, obviously that's something I'm very passionate about, the whole concept of transition, and what does an athlete do when they realize that they're done with their sport, at least playing, whether it's as a student athlete and they've either suffered an injury or they've graduated and now they're like, well, wait a minute, there's no professional judo league or whatever the hell they were doing in college. And so what was it like for you when you first were injured? And, you know, as you said, baseball was your whole life. Did you, just focus more on your studies? Did you not? What happened? You know?
I'm very lucky that when it happened, I was filming a documentary film for my thesis project. I actually made my own major. I developed my own major at Wofford. So I studied leadership. I was the only leadership major in the history of Wofford. And part of what I had to study, I had to do a capstone project on leadership. And I decided to make it on coaching leadership and how that compares to business leadership. And so I was filming our whole team that 2007 year. I was filming everything. And I became a character because it was then that I found I would never play again. And I'll never forget turning the camera on myself. One of those old mini DV mini DVs. I turned it on right after I found out I would never play baseball again. And it was one of the most realest, hardest, emotional moments to watch. And I just actually picked it out the other day and watched it again. I might even put it out there. It was realizing you'll never do what you thought you would do the rest of your life. And I broke down and I was emotional, and I talked about the advice my dad gave me and always staying positive. And it was tough. At that moment, I saw myself as a guy who didn't know what he was going to do. And it took, after that, I said, all right, I got up the next day and I said, all right, do I want to get into coaching? And I started exploring that opportunity and realized that wasn't for me. And then lo and behold, I got an email about an internship and I said, let's try that. And so I learned that the best thing to do in moments of transition is to just start doing things. Because I was sitting there and I think it was a few days, like just upset, not knowing what I was going to do. My dad came down after I got surgery and was like, what are you going to do? You know, you can sit and think and think and think and think, start doing. And so I took that internship, getting paid nothing, started calling companies to sell $200 program ads and convince them to sponsor a college summer baseball team. And I realized that I loved it. I fell in love with the idea of getting people excited to come out to a ball game. And that's where my next real journey took place.
And so it was great that you rebounded so quickly and fairly quickly, because look, lots of people don't, they sort of sit on the couch and they wallow, or they spend sort of, what do they call it? Paralysis by analysis. They kind of spend way too much time figuring that stuff out. So your junior year and your senior year, you're focusing on leadership. That's a great idea. Honestly, I'm surprised that nobody else has followed suit in your footsteps at Wofford doing that sort of thing.
Well, there is no, it's a humanities degree and you have to determine your own major. It's all independent, independent studies, cross-disciplinary. So they don't make it easy. Let's put it that way. But it was, again, I think that's so important for some people to create your own path. So I had to start doing that in college, started creating my own path. Right. And then when I got out of there, I just created my own path with the baseball teams.
Super. So you get out of school, and I know you don't graduate at 23. So you were right. Or when did you?
I graduated. I came back my fifth year. They're trying to get me to play again, but the shoulder did not come back. So gotcha. I had to drop classes so I couldn't graduate. So I could graduate at 23.
So how on earth do you get the call saying, "All right, listen, we need a GM. What are you doing today? What's going on?
It started with that internship. So that internship with the team that's no longer around. I was just selling things. I was competitive. So I said, how can I have 3 to 5 meetings a day? How can I call everyone in the phone book and try to sell them? And what the owner saw, that I was making more sales than the entire staff combined, and including the general manager. And he said, we have an opportunity with our team in Gastonia, North Carolina. Would you be interested in being the GM? And he was very hesitant. He was very skeptical, but he said we had nothing to lose, because in fact, there was nothing to lose. It was one of the worst performing teams in the world.
So you show up day one and you're like, shit, I'm 23. What should I do? How'd you get things rolling with that job?
Well, I found out the real numbers my first day. I showed up and I found out that only 200 fans were coming to the game. There was only $268 in the bank account, and the team had lost $100,000 the previous year. Then I made 10 phone calls out in the community about the team. The team had been there for 7 years. The first 7 phone calls, no one had heard of the team. The next 2 phone calls, the next 2 phone calls, people said they'd never work with us. And the final phone call I got hung up on. That was my first day in the office. So at that point, I realized
that's actually not a bad hang-up rate. 10% hang-up rate is pretty good, actually.
Yeah, not too bad. So I realized we had a problem, but I never questioned, what am I doing? I said, wow, this is a pretty cool opportunity. I go, you hear about some of the greatest coaches. They never want to take over a team that's doing very well. They want to take over a team that's in the bottom and build them up. I was like, we can't get any lower than this. So I started meeting with companies and I said, hey, we're the baseball team. They go, oh, we don't like baseball. And I said, oh, but we're the baseball. We don't like baseball. I said, hey, we got a baseball. No, we're not interested in baseball. I heard it over and over and over again that people didn't like baseball. They didn't want to take their company to a baseball game. They thought it was too long, too slow, and too boring. And at that point, based on just my meetings and connecting with potential fans, I realized we could no longer be a baseball team. And so I called the owner of the company and the team, and I said, Ken, we can't be a baseball team. He goes, what do you have in mind? I go, well, it needs to be like a circus. I go, our players need to choreograph dances. I go, we need to have grandma beauty pageants. I need to get in the dunk tank. We need to have salute to underwear nights. We need to make it ridiculous. And he, fortunately, didn't fire me. He empowered me and said, run with it. And I started running with it. And we doubled, tripled, quadrupled attendance, started selling out games. And it was amazing what happened.
Well, now, did you find that in Gastonia anyway, how is the team doing itself otherwise? And then I guess the next question is, did players suddenly say, you know what, I'd rather play for Gastonia?
Yeah, that happened. It took time. The reality is what we've learned is that wins and losses aren't indicative of focusing necessarily on wins and losses. Wins and losses are happen because of the culture and the atmosphere that you create.
Right.
If you create a great atmosphere, a great culture with lots of recognition, lots of fun, people play better. That took a few years to learn. They came for the baseball, but then I told them, I want this to be the best summer of your life, and we're going to have fun. We're going to do things you never thought you'd do before, like dance, like pass out roses to fans in the crowd, and go on dates with fans and during the game, and do conga lines and pass out programs. And they're part of the cast. And our games are not a game; it's a show. And I think every business is in the entertainment business. And how are you entertaining your clients, your customers, and hopefully turning them into fans? And so we went from there, trying to try everything, to now with our new team, the Savannah Bananas, we don't spend any dollars marketing. And we fortunately sold out every single game because of creating an experience where the players are a big part of it, but not because of how they play baseball, but because how they entertain and how they're fan-centric. And that, I think, is the big key. And that's what we're being different than most teams, because Major League Baseball, it's about wins and losses and performance. For us, we're about how much did you entertain? How was the experience? What were the moments you created? And when you create that, the wins and losses and everything else, the revenues take care of itself.
Well, wait a minute. I'm a little confused, because you're saying that I mean, when I go to Yankee Stadium, it's typical that the players will go through the stands handing out roses, and they do conga lines. So what's different than? Oh, wait a minute. No, they don't do that. I think that's
but they're
amazing.
Better baseball. You know what you're good at, and know what you're not good at. The Yankees, Major League Baseball, they will always be the best baseball there is. We can never be that. What games can you play, and what games can you win? We couldn't win that, but we believe we can provide the best show and the best entertainment in sports. We'll play that game, because that game, there's really no rules, and we break them with breakdancing first base coaches and senior citizen dance teams and all the things that we do during a game, because that's a game we think we can win.
All right, this one's going to be an easy question. I mean, I have a feeling I know the answer, but do you yourself know how to juggle?
I had an 8-year-old kid teach me. This is actually, I was coach at my dad's baseball club. An 8-year-old kid taught me how to juggle. So yes.
So I think what you need to do when your season opens is have a contest amongst your players to see who can juggle the best. Just throwing it out there.
We actually asked that question. What skills and talents do you have? If we've had players that can sing, we'll have them sing during the games. If players that can dance, they'll dance. If they can juggle, you better believe they'll be juggling.
By the way, every player is going to say they know how to dance. You know that.
Oh yeah, and some that's very yeah.
You got it from the Elaine School of Dancing. Yeah,
that's for sure.
That's great. So anyway, tell me a little bit about the transition from Gastonia to Savannah. And I think I mentioned to you in our previous chat that I'd been, whether it was fortunate or unfortunate enough to attend a Sand Gnats game. I don't even know how many years ago it was, ages ago, in the stadium. And I mean, I remember it was fun to go to a minor league game, but I didn't feel much energy there and that sort of thing. And I know that you came on board. And tell me a little bit about how that transpired. What made you, number one, want to be there, and number two, grow it?
Sure. Well, back in 2014, when a sold-out game in Gastonia, I proposed to Emily, my wife, in front of a sold-out crowd in a yellow tuxedo, had the ring inside a baseball in the middle of the game, had a fireworks show go off, completely delay the game. The umpires didn't know what was going on. Thank goodness she said yes. And then shortly after, the next day, she planned a trip for us to go to Savannah. I had never been to Savannah. And so we went down to Savannah, fell in love with the city. And then the minor league team was playing a game there. We walked into this majestic, epic 1926 ballpark, the big brick columns. You walk in, as you know what it's like. And I was like, wow, I felt like a kid in a candy store. You could feel the history. And we learned later that Babe Ruth hit a home run there. Mickey Mantle hit a home run there. Hank Aaron, I mean, you name it, all played at the stadium. And then we walked up, took the steps right up to the grandstand, a beautiful night, 82 degrees, and there was no one there. And we looked around. It was like we had a whole section to ourselves. We're like, what is going on? And then we watched the game, and we proceeded to hear just a baseball game. Not much music, not many promotions, just a baseball game. And so I called
batting number 2.
Number 2. And then I called the commissioner of the league that day, and I said, hey, if this team ever leaves for any reason, I go, we're calling this market. We want to come here. And lo and behold, they wanted a brand new stadium from the city, a $38 million stadium. The city said no. And so they left. And we called the city and convinced them to give an unproven, really, college summer baseball team a chance to take over an old minor league ballpark. And we came in on October 5th, 2015, and that's when it got really hard.
Oh, come on. It's been an easy journey for you. What are you talking about? Piece of cake. It's funny. I read that you mentioned that you thought that in the Coastal Plains League that sometimes you feel like you're the redheaded stepchild or whatever. I have to think that some of the owners, look, the owners and the general GMs and so on of all minor league baseball, I'm sure have taken notice anyway. Whether they like it or they don't like it, there's going to be some that are traditionalists and there's going to be and purists and so forth. And there's others that say, look, man, this can help the bottom line, and or also putting aside the bottom line for a minute, but also look, the idea of having exciting sort of experience in your hometown or in the stadium that you've got in your town is got to be great. Why'd you call yourself that?
Well, it's who we are.
You're not redheaded, are you?
No, it's who we are. I mean, the reality is baseball's built on tradition. And a lot of people that get into baseball do it because of love for the game. I loved the game 100%, but that doesn't mean the game needs to stay where it's at if it wants to continue to grow. And I've watched as the average baseball fan is now going into their 60s and attendance is declining dramatically. Little League participation is declining. We're watching it. Fans still leave our games in the 6th, 7th, 8th inning. We're still putting on a show, but they're still leaving. There's still a challenge with baseball. There's a problem with it. Yeah. And so when we come in to fundamentally change the role of the players, the role of the experience, and put the baseball not necessarily first, put the entertainment first, that will upset people. And I believe if you're not upsetting anyone, you're not really doing anything. Because the reality is we embrace criticism. We're okay with it. That means we're doing something that's a little interesting, a little different, a little exciting. If you play it safe, you're in trouble. So for us, we came way out of the box and said, this is who we are. And our players are in music videos. We do crazy things with them. I mean, it's outrageous. But I'll tell you, every player that plays for us, they come back and say that was the most fun I've ever had playing baseball. And that's something for me. I wish, as the athletes that I listen, sometimes it becomes too serious. It becomes too much of a profession. It becomes too much of this is what I have to do to earn my keep, to earn my money. And I was the same way at Wofford. I got a full scholarship, and I put pressure on myself every single night. Baseball should be fun. Sports should be fun. And I think for us to let guys to not take themselves too serious is really refreshing for them. And they also play better because they're doing it. I never got that opportunity. I never had as much fun as I should have. And I hope that we give that opportunity to all our players.
In the Coastal Plains League, it's describe for me the length of the season, how many games there are, that's sort of the logistics there.
Sure, it's 60 games. The guys get here after, they literally play their college season, whether it's at University of Georgia, somewhere in the SEC, Texas A&M, then they come here for the summer to play Wood Bat League. They play 60 games, and then they're back on to school. So we have to get these guys onboarded really quickly into the Bananas fans first experience. And so we spend 2 full days doing that before they even start with us because they're indoctrinated with their college, not with their summer ball team. And that's who we are.
Right. So how do you guys get players, or how does league get players?
Yeah, it's fortunate. It's a very, very strong league. There's been over 1,000 players drafted. This last year, the Bananas had a first rounder, a second rounder, a fourth rounder. We had the first round pick of the Braves. So there's been Russell Wilson played for us for our team in Gastonia. So Justin Verlander, Kevin Youkilis, you name it. It's a very well-known league. So we're fortunate. Our coach told me the other day we get over 1,000 applicants to play for our team for a 30-man roster.
Oh, that's great.
So
For the
we're
team or for the league?
Just for us, just for the Bananas.
No
over
kidding.
1,000 for 30. Yeah.
Wow. Can I? So I can't reserve a spot for my son in a couple of years, huh?
You'll have to work hard to see how much he can dance, juggle, and sing.
Don't worry, he'll be plenty ready for that. How can this sort of translate into some of the higher minor leagues and even into major leagues, or can it?
In 100% can. It just, you're going to have to sacrifice some of the traditionalists. You're going to have to potentially disappoint or frustrate some people, and that's how everything starts for us. What do you have to stand on? What do you stand for? Who are you? What are you fighting against? For us, we're standing against that boring game of baseball that so many people hate, that we're going to try to make it nonstop fun and exciting. So that's what we're standing for. We're standing for the fan. The fan deserves the game back. It's not just about the players, the money, the owner's revenue. It's about the fan experience. And we want to break that barrier between the fans are here and then the players and owners are over here. And so we're fighting against that every day to make it a better experience for fans. So the question in minor leagues and major leagues, what are you fighting for? What is that fight that you're doing every day and that you're trying to make a better experience? What do you stand for? And, we're very clear on that. And so it can, if they're willing to maybe lose some of the tradition and say, you know what,
right,
this is where baseball is, but this is where it's going. And not only focus on where baseball is going, where do your customers want to go? Where do your fans want to go? And that, that great quote from Wayne Gretzky is, I skate to where the puck is going, not to where the puck has been. They got to start looking at, what do people want? Do they want to, is sports set up to be a spectator sport? Or is it set up to be a sport that they get to be more involved, more interactive? I believe no one wants to sit for anything for 3, 4, 5 hours. And that's what baseball games are becoming. So how do you make it more interactive?
Well, it's interesting. And I've I read a lot of the sports business newsletters and so forth. And I know that the A's and some other major league teams have experienced or have gone with the idea of sort of general admission ticketing on a lot of things, but also the idea that you could spend a certain amount per month and have access to these games and sit in certain sections anytime you want, and you can rotate around the stadium, that sort of thing. So I mean, I think they're trying some stuff, but it's sort of baby steps. But look,
well, you got to constantly be experimenting. They're doing that, but again, start with, what do your customers hate? That's why we make every single ticket all inclusive. No one wants to go to a ballpark and pay $10 for this, $10 for this, $9 for this, and all of a sudden they spend $200 for a couple burgers, a broad, and a beer. So stop with doing what the customers hate. And I think there are teams like the A's and the Braves and some other teams that are doing a really good job of looking at that, but it needs to be universal throughout all major league baseball to really change it.
That might be challenging, but I love the universal pricing. I love the idea that, and maybe it can be something in Major League Baseball where it's sort of, you're buying tickets to a particular section for a certain amount, that it's all inclusive. I love the all inclusive idea. And it's probably smart to not include alcohol, because I'm sure that's where almost all these stadiums derive such a big chunk of their revenue from. The best thing to me about all this, as you said, is, and you call your company, one of your entities, the Fans First, right? Wait, it's called Fans First, or is it?
No, it's the name of everything. Fans First Entertainment. That's the name of our company. Mission: Fans First, Entertain Always. Every decision we make is a Fans First. I mean, that's our guiding light.
I love it. And so, with that in mind, right now as we speak, so going into the next season and going forward, is there a wait list to 10 games? How hard is it to get to your game?
Yeah, we've been fortunate. I mean, there's scalpers outside every game. It's college summer baseball. We have a wait list in the thousands. Yep, every season ticket, our stadium club, our 5-game plans, there's a big wait list for that. We've already started the wait list for 2021. So it's been wild. Every weekend game sells out as soon as the schedule comes out. So, but we have a priority list every year where people can have an opportunity for some single game tickets for a handful of games. And that started, and that'll get into the thousands, and sometime in April it'll open up, and then they'll go. And, what I didn't share was where it got hard. I mean, we only sold a couple tickets in our first few months, and it got so bad that we ran out of money, and Emily and my wife and I, we had to literally, not Emily and my wife and I, Emily's my wife. It was just two of us. We had to sell our house and empty out our savings account, and we were sleeping on an airbed. And it wasn't until we got the attention and the eyes and ears of our customers and started sharing all what we're doing and getting them to experience it, that it took off. So fortunately now, yes, huge wait list. It's really unprecedented in sports what we have right now. We're very, very fortunate. but it took a lot of challenges and hardship to get there.
What's the capacity there, give or take?
4,000. So yeah, we've about 4,200 is what we average. So we go a little over capacity, and that's what we do every night.
Is there a way to add on without getting, too expensive, or not really?
We are constantly asking those questions. So whenever we look at how can we take care of more fans, there's a lot of things that go into that: parking and food service and bathrooms. And so we will ask those questions, but we will not add more seats and more amenities unless we can make sure it's a great experience for the fans that are already coming.
All right, listen, I don't want you to steal this idea, but I was thinking, what if you had people hovering from, drones? Maybe they could, kind of sit around the stadium that way.
The drone hovering seats. Yeah, that's in the plan for 2026. So we're a few years. So that's in addition to players skydiving to their positions, which at one game in the future, we will have players skydive to their positions.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, we have an idea book. See, Mark, literally, this is every day, 10 ideas a day. Just write down ideas. The idea book. This is 2019, so I need a new one for 2020. But that's what we do.
So you are going to take my drone idea. I know it. Anyway, it's funny because Madison Square Garden, world's most famous arena, being led by world's worst executive. Can I say that out loud on this thing? But I'm a Rangers fan, and so what they did a few years ago is they renovated the inside of the garden, and they added what they call bridge seats, which are literally, they built these two giant skyways way in the top of the stadium. So there are seats that are way up there looking basically straight down onto, in my case, the ice. And I was like, holy crap, what are they going to think of next? And they are going to have upside down seats eventually on the rooftop for people looking down. It's just, it's crazy what people are trying to do to get seats in. But I love what you're doing.
It's a good philosophy. I mean, we go by outthink, don't outspend. So we try to put ourselves in our customer's shoes and outthink, don't outspend. So we go undercover every night, one person on our staff as a fan. I take off the yellow tuxedo, wear normal civilian clothes, and park with the fans. We go in lines with the fans. We sit with the fans, and we get to see what is that experience like. And we develop tons of pages of notes on how we enhance the experience. You have to put yourself in the customer's shoes, and that's what we try to do.
So explain to me how this works. If you've got the one price, ticket, admission and so forth, right? So if it's unlimited, as you said, soft drinks and burgers and so forth. Food.
Yeah.
Does that sort of mean that there's no lines because they're just basically walking up and handing it out, or?
No, we go through 10,000 pieces of meat in the first hour that people come in. And there's 4,000 people that try to eat at the same point. There are lines. But I'll tell you, when we first started it in 2016, you would get in line at the first inning, the first game, and you didn't get food until the 8th or 9th inning. It was bad. It was 3 hours, 2+ hours. Then the next night we got a little better. Then the next night we got a little better. Now everyone can get their food within 5 minutes. And so we've built into a system to make it better. But yeah, it's like a cruise ship. So for instance, everyone's got a wristband for all your ballpark food, your burgers, your hot dogs, your chicken sandwiches, your soda, your water, your popcorn, your chips, your cookies. But if you want premium items, if you want our French fries, you want our nachos, you want your beer, you want some liquor, you want a t-shirt, there's other things that you would pay for.
Right.
But we want to make sure everyone gets the ballpark experience that they deserve. And that's part of Fans First. We believe going to a ballpark and not having a hot dog, not having a soda is not a ballpark experience. And people should not be nickel and dime for it. So again, we're putting ourselves, if the fans owned our team, what would they do? And that's how we provided it. And we tested it. And I think for all the people that are listening that are going through a transition of what to do, what am I going to do? Again, you just got to test things. We are constantly experimenting. I think so many times we're afraid, well, what will happen? What will they think? Hey, if you build your brand, whether that's personal or business, as constantly testing and experimenting, it's amazing what you'll learn from that and what you'll discover. But it's the people that think about things without actually testing it that are held back. And I'll tell you, Mark, I wrote 159 blogs before I released one. I was too scared. I wasn't living by the brand of what our business was doing. So over 2.5 years ago, I said, every day I'm going to post something on LinkedIn or social, just something to share value, not to get anything in return, just test. You know what? It's no big deal. Some posts probably aren't that good. Some don't add value. But you know what? There's always another post the next day. And I think everyone always, what's your next at bat? You might have had a great at bat as a professional athlete, as some of your listeners here, but what's your next at bat? And I think that's what we're constantly thinking about. And you know what? If you want to get more hits, you need to have more at bats. Pete Rose had 2,000 more at-bats than anyone else in Major League history. No wonder why he had over 4,000 hits. That's the question. So no one thinks about, wow, Pete Rose had too many at-bats. No, they think about how many hits he had.
Well stated. Have you used that one before? If you haven't, that's a good one. That's a key.
I believe in it. You know, when you start doing things, you start learning from them. And, you know, after when you're doing things for a long time, finally it's like, you know what? How are we having success? And that's what we started doing. So
that's awesome. So let's pivot a little bit, because I want to talk about how you're now taking what you've learned running this team and Gastonia and trying to pivot that towards companies that really need a boost. So tell me a little bit about, let's say maybe I am a company, let's say it's called Tackle What's Next. Let's say it's looking to really impact the world and impact how athletes go through their transition. What's some of the advice that you like to give out to, whether it's smaller companies or bigger companies, to really expand?
Sure. Yeah. And this just, again, happened from just starting doing. So we were starting to have success in companies saying, how are you doing it? And then we started codifying and started sharing it. And so now it's become a thing where businesses are coming here and doing workshops with us and going through our fans first experience workshops. So, the starting point is, I think so many companies have core beliefs. They have a mission. They want to impact the world. But they often don't put it from their customer's perspective. Our whole goal is to turn your customers into fans and have your fans do all the marketing for you. That's everything that we do. And it starts with, what do you want your customers saying about you? We guide people to turn your customers into your fans and get your fans to be your biggest marketers. And I think a lot of companies, they don't start there. And so what do you want your customers, if they're fans, what do you want them saying about you? And we don't always put ourselves in our customers' shoes. So we started with many years saying, we want people to say it was the most fun they've ever had at a baseball game. It was like a circus and a baseball game broke out. And that became what we call our PFT, which is our perfect fan testimonial. And we work with companies for everyone to develop that. If you could have one Google review, only one, about you and your company, what would you want it to say? And we work with companies starting there. And once you get that, that's your vision on how you map the experience. That's how you'll stop doing things that your customers hate, stop doing the friction points, and move forward. And so we'll workshop this with a company from their guiding light to mapping the first impressions, the buying experience, the last impressions, till they build a fans first experience where they no longer have to spend thousands of dollars marketing. They build that experience where every customer they interact with goes out and tells everyone about that experience they had with you.
You couldn't be more right. I mean, this is something that I advise my clients all the time, that you can, as the owner of the team and so forth, you can walk around and tell people how great it is to attend a game. But if my neighbor went to a game and tells me, Mark, I just went to this game, it was the best experience I ever had, that's probably who I'm listening to. So you couldn't be more right. In fact, just this morning I was talking to my partner in my business and saying that we really need to get a lot of the athletes that we do work with to really talk about what we're doing for them versus just us saying, gee, we do a great job helping athletes, blah, blah, blah. We want the athlete to say, look, we really benefited from Tackle What's Next and what they're doing. So spot on. This is great.
The answer is not asking for testimonials. Yes, that's okay. That's fine. We've all done it. But the answer is creating such an experience that they go out and they have to tell people about it. And it gives them social currency. It's like one in the next book that I'm working on is You Wouldn't Believe. It's the 3 most powerful words in customer experience. How many times you wouldn't believe that experience at the restaurant. You wouldn't believe what they did for me. And that's how we built this. We wanted people to come to the ballpark and say, you wouldn't believe what happened at the stadium tonight. You wouldn't believe they had a breakdancing first base coach. You wouldn't believe a player delivered my little girl a rose in the middle of the game. You wouldn't believe they had a senior citizen dance team dancing to Justin Timberlake. You wouldn't believe they had banana-shaped tickets that are scratch and sniff and smell like bananas. Like we build these you wouldn't believe statements because it's mapping that experience from our PFT. It was the most fun I've ever had at a baseball game. It was like a circus and a baseball game broke out. Every company, whether you're a baseball team, whether you're a home builder, whether you're an accountant, can do this. And that's what we've learned over the last few years working with companies. And it's so fun to watch these companies have these aha moments where it's like, wow, we can do this. And they'll start seeing, whoa, one of our customers said our PFT actually on a review. I go, because that's how you're mapping your experience. You're giving them what to say about you. And that's when I looked at TripAdvisor reviews the other day and people were saying it was the most fun I've ever had at a baseball game. Perfect. You're doing it for us.
That's great. you wouldn't believe. It's awesome. That's a great, those are three very powerful words. Well done. So what's in your mind? I mean, look, you've gotten this far, which is great. And without divulging anything, I don't, I'm not asking for any secret,
I'll give it all away.
That's a spirit. Ooh, fans first, Mark first. I mean, what do you looking down the road a bit, 5 years from now, that sort of thing. I mean, do you envision growing this model elsewhere? Because look, you've done a great job here in Savannah and so forth, but there's only so much I think you'll be able to get to, and you're probably almost there. I mean, look, it's great to continue doing it, but do you think it'd be awesome to, look into growing this into other minor leagues, or do you think you're more interested in just growing the messaging of Fans First into other corporate entities? What would you love to see going on?
Sure, and it stems right from who we are and what we stand for and our vision. Yeah. Our vision is to bring fans first to the world. So that gives us a lot of opportunities on how we do that. Obviously, we want to provide the best fan experience with our team in Savannah. Then we want to work with companies with Fans First U. And then the next one is take the show on the road. So that's guiding us. And I think there's still a fight to be made for customers being fans and for treating people like they matter and treating people differently and providing a better sporting experience. And so that fight's not going to stop, and we're never going to stop fighting. And hopefully we keep creating stories and memories, and whether it's corporate clients or whether it's with this team taking the show on the road, Globetrotter style, we're open to it and we will explore it. I never like putting timelines on things unless it's short term and I want to say, hey, we're going to do this by this, but we will not close the door to those opportunities. And because our vision is clear. If our vision was just to make a lot of money, we would do a lot of things, but our vision is to bring fans first to the world. So whatever opportunities that entails, and we're excited for it.
All right. So you will have truly succeeded, in my opinion, if you can conquer the post office.
I'm going to jump on that for a second. There's a huge thing there because it's not just on the post office, but it's the culture that's created and the leadership and what's inside. Because if you want to deliver a great experience for your customers, you need to deliver a great experience for your people, for your employees, from your staff. Sure. And I would question, what is the leadership of the post office? Who's leading it? Is it about, making it a fun, recognition-based, good place to work? And that would be, once they do that, then those people will start thinking about, how do I make it so much better for every person that comes in the door? So I love that question, and I would love to find a way to do it at the post office, but it's a deeper question than just saying, let's focus on the customer experience.
Absolutely. Well, you're right. And it does start top down. I mean, you can do bottom up and you can do top down, both directions. I think that's awesome. Well, listen, I'm going to jump real quickly into a segment I call Hit Your Mark. It's super duper easy, real quick. And it's sort of putting you on the spot a little bit, but don't do this whole wishy-washy answer. Just jump in and tell me who your favorite baseball player is.
Favorite baseball player. Going back in the day, it was Pedro Martinez and Nomar Garcia-Parra from the Red Sox.
Nomar. You know what? I hate to admit this. It hurts me to suggest that I actually liked any of the Red Sox and so forth, but I always respected Nomar. Just a solid player. Yeah. And Pedro was a sick pitcher.
But they both had Pedro more so. He had so much fun. He had so much fun. He was so competitive. Yeah. He was one of the few guys that I could watch on pitching, not just watch hitters because I want to watch offense. I would love watching him pitch because he had fun. He had tenacity. So yes, good question.
Yeah. And same with Poppy too. Seemed to have a fair amount of fun here and there.
That's what it's about. Yeah.
Yeah. Good answer. If you're not hanging out with the whole baseball thing, what other sports do you like?
Well, I run every day, so I enjoy running, but
boo.
Okay.
Why run? You can drive.
Yeah, I've never been booed before on a podcast. This is new for me. This is tough. I'm a person that loves watching performers. So Wofford and Davidson. So I was watching Steph Curry back in Davidson days. I loved watching him. Russell Wilson, obviously he played for me. Love watching them, whatever team he's on. So Tim Tebow, when he was with the Denver and he was doing the great comebacks and wins I love Jeremy Lin for the 2 months that he was unbelievable. So I am more a performer based and then now coach based. I love Dabo Sweeney, what he's doing in Clemson, and I love Pete Carroll, what he's doing in Seattle.
Oh, really interesting. Pete Carroll. I mean, I'm assuming by now, because you're a big shot franchise owner.
I'm chuckling now.
Yeah. What's he going to ask me now? Do you own a boat?
Oh, no. I barely owned a home a few years ago.
If you did, what would
I got a bike the other day. I own a bicycle. But a boat? Come on. We're college summer baseball, Mark. Lay off.
If you had one, what would you call it?
Jeez. That's a good question. Banana boat.
And then look, lastly, I mean, I love the impact you're making, and that's why I wanted you on Make Your Mark, and that's the whole point of this. And at the end of the day, a lot of this is about putting a smile on someone's face and enjoying their experience, whether it's attending a baseball game or even going to an office that's got, one hanging light bulb somewhere, and whatever it is might seem dreary, but if you can turn it into an enjoyable experience, as you've said before, I've always said it, when you make something a positive experience, the productivity goes through the roof. And, I spent most of my career advising people on their careers themselves. And all I've ever heard was they like their job, but they hate the environment or something. And so if there's a way to turn that all around, and I feel like you're at the forefront of that, and I really appreciate that. I certainly do. But what is something that down the road, 20, 30 years from now, you want people to look back and say, you know what, that guy, Jesse, I really liked him because fill in the blank. What's the legacy you'd like to leave behind?
Well, I actually wrote my eulogy in my book, Find Your Yellow Tux, 2 years ago when I released it. So I think everyone should ask that question. How do you want to be remembered? And it's evolved. It changes, now that I've had my first son. And, I want to be the best part of someone's day every day. I want to bring energy. I want to bring fun. I want to lift people up. And, if you ever want to be lifted up, lift others up. And, I've been so fortunate to have people around me that are so positive, so uplifting that it's contagious. It influences me. So I've been writing a thank you letter every day for going on. It's going to be my 5th year. I've written thousands of thank you letters. I start every day with gratitude. And it's the best way to start the day. And then every night when I go to bed, I turn to Emily and we say, what was your rose for the day? What was your bud? And we do rose, rose, bud. And we say the 2 positive things, the great things from the day, and the thing we're looking forward to. And her word for the year is gratitude. My word is optimism. Every year we choose a word. So I just think it's how you show up every day. What do people think of you? Do they bring a smile to your face? Or when you see that someone's calling, do you want to answer that call from them? And I hope I can be someone that everyone wants to answer that call because of how I make them feel.
Well, you got to make sure it says Jesse Cole on the caller ID, though.
If it's unknown, you're in trouble. Funny story about that. Yeah, you're in trouble. Back in the day, Simon Sinek, Great Leaders Inspire Action. He called me, and it was an unknown phone number. And this was back when you answered unknown phone numbers. This was about 4 or 5 years ago. And I was blown away. And the phone call came from a thank you letter I sent him. And he goes, I just want to call you and let you know how much your letter inspired me. I go, are you kidding me, Simon? You've inspired millions. And he goes, the reason I do what I do is help people live inspired lives. And your letter inspired me. And thank you. And I think about that unknown phone number and how glad I was that I answered that and was able to talk to one of my biggest mentors.
Oh, great. Now I got to start answering these calls. Damn it. I may have missed Simon's call. The other day I got an email from, have you heard of Ted McGrath by any chance? Does that ring a bell?
I've heard the name. I don't know of his work.
I mean, he's a lot about incorporating stories into your marketing. And he's had one of these, lives where he was this and then he was this and now he's back to this again. And I mean, it's an interesting stuff. I'm on his list. I read a lot of his things that he sends and so on. But he's he's out there a lot. And the other day I got an email from a guy who says, and it said something about Ted McGrath. And I thought, oh, it's just another one of his whatevers. And instead it was his agent or something who said, well, we were wondering if you'd want to get involved with Ted somehow and or, have him on your podcast or something. And I was kind of like, did one of those, like, what? That's so weird. I've been just reading this guy's stuff and it caught me off guard. And this is something I'm going to tell everybody after we start our conversation here, that I got Jesse Cole on my damn podcast. It's amazing. And you know how I did it? Just by talking to you, right? Just by communicating. And do you feel pretty important right now when I just said that? Is that pretty cool? Like, I think so. I don't know.
No, I think you're making a great point. You play the long game. It's a relationship game, and you reach out, and it's not necessarily what you can get from that relationship, what you can get from that conversation. And I think I've learned a lot from people around me that have done the same thing. And so I appreciate you reaching out. I'm glad, obviously, to connect. And I think, no one should ever be afraid to reach out and connect. But don't reach out to ask. Reach out maybe because, hey, I've been following what you're doing. I'm a big fan. Reach out in gratitude. That's a big difference. And I remember vividly when I wrote Mark Cuban an email when I was 25 years old about the impact of his book. I didn't ask for anything. I just said, your book made a huge impact. And he wrote back within a couple hours and just said, thank you so much for this email. And Mark Cuban wrote back to me. It's a 25-year-old. And that showed me a lot.
Well, I think sometimes people have the perception that whether it's celebrities or athletes and so on, don't necessarily notice that stuff, but they do. When you treat them like they are sort of, I don't want to say normal human beings or whatever it might be, but you just treat them like regular people and you're courteous and you're nice. And as you said, you don't have an ask in there. You're just being nice.
Yep. And that's going to grow. Human connection is going to grow more. The more we have social, the more we have all those issues and challenges with social and TV and everything else, I think human connection is going to continue to be needed. And so I'm glad that we were able to connect, and hopefully more people will connect more in a human way, not in a way to just try to get things from others.
Well, Jesse, one of these days I hope to do it in a really human way and actually meet you, whether it's down in Savannah or somewhere other place in the galaxy. Or if you're ever up in New York, I will absolutely take you to a something game. I don't know what. Maybe not. Let's go to
maybe a good show. I'd love to see a good show.
All right. Me too. It's funny, when you live in New York, you don't go to Broadway shows. It's strange. I don't know. I really appreciate your time today, Jesse, and being on the Make Your Mark podcast. You've been an amazing guest, and not just because you're a funny guy in a yellow top hat, but because you're a smart guy, you care, you are making a huge impact. And what I like about it is that you're taking your message and your impact and you're putting it out to scale. So lots of people are getting that message, and that resonates with me and my audience. So I really appreciate you being here.
You are too, my friend. I appreciate you. Thanks for everything.
My bad. See ya. Thanks so much for joining us today on this episode of Make Your Mark podcast. The goal of the podcast is to help you find ways to make your mark, to succeed in life, and to jump past your competition. Be sure to leave me a review on iTunes and Stitcher, and subscribe to be the first to hear new episodes. If you're looking for ways to make your mark, send me an email, mark@markmoyer.com, and I'll get back to you right away. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.